title of Bruce's talk is Why Do People Miss the Next Great Trend in Technology? Please join me in welcoming Bruce Gillen.
Thank you so much. The personal computer, the cell phone, the internet, video games, social media. Isn't everyone here compelled to say, if I'd only thought of that, if I'd only seen that trend, I could be at Toastmasters in the south of France with Prince Rainier instead of with all you guys. I want to talk today about why technology trends are so difficult to spot. I think it really relates to all of us, no matter where we are in the river of life. I also think that when we look at our own lives, I think we see ourselves as stakeholders, and certainly in our society, certainly in our lives, there's important opportunities there. And so I think when we do that, we really need to take a look and take that leap and jump into the icy pond. So I really want to talk about three things. The first I want to talk about is two types of change in the world. The second I want to talk about a human condition called presentism that makes it very difficult for us to predict that. Third, I want to talk about something people are very good at predicting, and then I want to conclude with some practical advice. So starting out, there are really two ways that the world changes, and the first is through incremental change. The second is through disruptive change. And if you think about it, a good example of incremental change is the Grand Canyon. So if we all picture ourselves standing on the rim of the Grand Canyon, and I hope most of us have had that opportunity, what you see is something that was formed really gust by gust, drop by drop, over a very long period of time, over 17 million years. Now, in contrast, if you've ever been to Hawaii, Hawaii is really formed by disruptive change. The Hawaiian Islands are all formed by volcanic eruption taking place out in the middle of the ocean and creating new islands, all right? And it happens suddenly. You can actually watch the process of new real estate being created in Hawaii, standing on the beach. So that's an example of disruptive change. The Grand Canyon is an example of incremental change. Now in technology, we really have both, if you think about it. Most of the change is really incremental. And Moore's Law, for example, is a good example of that. Since 1968, the power of chips have doubled every 18 months. It's been something that's been smooth, it's been predictable. But unfortunately, that's not really your best investment opportunity. Your best investment opportunity is disruptive change. Changes that happen like the Hawaiian Islands, where something changes really suddenly. A good example of that, for instance, is Facebook or social media. All of a sudden, a bunch of bright kids went out, came up with a website that within a matter of a few years had hundreds of millions of people who were on it. So that's really an example of disruptive change. Now the reason that that's very difficult to predict is because of a human psychological condition called presentism. And the idea behind presentism is the way our brains work is they process information based on what you know now. So for instance, there's been some studies where they call up people in different cities and they ask, how do you feel about your life? Are you happy with your life? Are you satisfied with your life? And you call Philadelphia, people will say, well, you know, I'm really not all that happy with my life. And then they'll call Houston and they'll say, how do you feel about your life? Well, we feel good about our lives. And then there's a statistical correlation between that and the weather. If the weather's nice in Houston, people feel optimistic about their life going forward. If the weather is raining in Philadelphia, they feel badly about it. Because they're in the present. That's really how we evolved as a species. So when we look at the future, look at the past, we really tend to take into account how we feel at that particular point in time. And that makes it very difficult for us to predict trends in the future. And to look forward and to say, Facebook, wow, what a great idea, this is going to be really big. Or to say cell phones, wow, this is going to be something that someday everyone is going to want. So psychologically, it's going to be very, very difficult for you to predict trends in technology because technology is a response to a need. Technology is a response to a problem or a solution. But that being said, what is possible for people to predict are needs. If you think about some of the changes that are taking place in the world today, you can identify, for instance, there's going to be a need for more clean water. there's going to be a need for cars that are more energy efficient. There's a scarcity of resources. So needs are actually something that you can predict with a fair amount of accuracy. And the need that I'm focused in on right now is there's an explosion of data. I don't know about you, but I take it down because of my cell phone. I take a lot more pictures. There's something called the Internet of Things, which means that people are putting microprocessors into devices like toothpaste, toothbrushes, in order to record all that data. So the amount of data is just growing and growing and growing exponentially. In fact, IBM estimates that 90% of the world's data was created in the last 2 years. So in other words, throughout human history, from the beginning of time until the year 2012, that accounted for 10% of the data, 90% of the data was created afterwards. That trend, I think you'd agree, is just going to continue and continue and continue. Now that's something I think that you can predict. So if you can predict the need, that what falls out from that is the ability to see the solution. So in closing, I really want to talk about the two things that I talked about in terms of change. That first, there's two types of change: incremental change and disruptive change. Second, because of our psychology, we're not very good at predicting it. And third, you can't predict needs. So in closing, I really want to say the trend is your friend. Thank you very much.